And that entity is I. What I? When you say all the time, who are you? When you say I am, when you say that I is the entity who has owned up all the properties of this Ubadhi and suffering from the sense of limitation. Therefore, this is the relative I with which we relate with the world. This I is relative. Why it is relative? It is a waker, it is a dreamer, and it is a sleeper. It undergoes slight incidental changes. When it engages itself in three states of experience. In this waking world, dream world, and sleep world. It engages itself. That's why Puratraye Kridati Jiva. This is the Puratraya. But in all this, the witness consciousness being there, we are using an adjective as witness just to make you see at this point of time, because that relative I becomes sentient because of this fundamental I which you call the witness consciousness. That witness consciousness is available all the time. It is anuptadrik. It doesn't wink. It is all the time available to you. And that consciousness, when it gets identified with this body-mind sense complex, the relative I is gone. The relative I is the cognitive tool with which you relate with the world. And the truth of this relative I, the experiencer, is this self-illumining consciousness. And that consciousness is available in every object of the world, which you have to know. A plant doesn't have a sense of I, or a stone doesn't have a sense of I. But it is that consciousness is very much there in every object, every being and non-being of this creation in the form of easiness. Asti bhavena. So what is there in an object as easiness is very much there as my amness. That amness witness consciousness and the easiness of the very object, there is no lacunae. It is one consciousness. And that consciousness is self-revealing. It is self-revealing all the time. But it is not available as an object. It is self-revealing. That's why, with reference to what is timelessness, when you ask, you start appreciating what is present. You bring into focus what is present. You ask what is present. Because this relative I, when it relates with the world, it has got three concepts. The present is a concept which relative I holds. In fact, present is timelessness. The present is a concept which relative I holds in this vyavahara, in this order of reality. Therefore, what is present when you say, then you resolve past and future into that present. How? Yesterday is only a thought which you are recollecting in the present, and future is only a projection which you make from now. Therefore, future is only a projection in the form of a thought, and past is only a recollection of a thought, and both resolve unto the present. When you look at the present, as we have seen, it is not the present second. And the present second is divided into a millionth of time. You cannot call it as the millionth fraction of a second is not the present. And the zillionth fraction of a second is not present. The nanosecond, femtosecond, what all you call are therefore, finally we arrive at the fact that time experience, who is conscious of? And how time is experienced? Time is always experienced in the form of a thought. And that fraction of the zillionth of a second, when who is awareing it, who is conscious of it, and that thought is in which self-illumining consciousness. And that thought, when it is self-illumining consciousness, is when the thought is that fraction of a sec of time, you are appreciating because of which consciousness? That consciousness and the time thought, there is no distance, there is zero distance. But when the time thought is in the form of a form, and consciousness illumines it. When the time thought is not, still that consciousness is illumined. That's why in sleep, the moment the I thought gets resolved, the witness consciousness being there, therefore time and space both come into play while the I thought is born. Because I thought is within time and space. When the I thought goes away, then you do not have the experience of time and space. There is no experiential time and space. Therefore, the witness consciousness, which illumines the time thought, because time thought is in the mind. It is called the mind. So, time is when mind resolves along with the I sense. There is no time. Witness consciousness illumines the I thought. I thought is as good as any other thought. Therefore, when the I thought is time and space, you are into the order of this reality. And when that thought, that fraction of a second, which is illumined by the self-illumining consciousness, in which consciousness that thought is, and to which consciousness that thought resolves, then it is not touched by the witness consciousness. That consciousness is the meaning of the word I. That is the meaning of the word fundamental I. And that consciousness, Bhagavan is referring by saying it is the reality, and every thought form which he called nothing, the whole world, Jagat, which is nothing but Nama Rupa, is superimposed upon that consciousness, but consciousness is not touched by it. That is the beauty of the whole thing. Therefore, that consciousness is what? It is Nityam. It is Shuddham, it is Bhuktam, it is Buddham, and what all the adjectives Shastra is saying to negate one aspect after another. Therefore, this is Nitya Shuddham. It is Satyam, Jnanam Anandam. Therefore, Jnana Sabdena, Jnapti Swarupam. Jnapti Swarupam means that which is the truth of the knower. And that truth of the knower is this witness consciousness. And that consciousness is free from time, and it is free from space. Therefore, this is the statement of the Bhagavan. So, on the reality, on the standpoint of Atma, on the standpoint of consciousness, Bhagavan is saying to Arjuna, Arjuna, you are timeless. Therefore, what Arjuna negated to appreciate that fact? What Arjuna would have to negate to appreciate that fact? He has to negate this body as an object. I am the subject. The mind equally as an object. I am the subject. And the causal body means what? Where all your memories are kept, is also negated. And I am the subject. And this I is not the relative I, which is born by the identification with the body, mind, sense complex. This relative I also is negated. How we negated? By avastha traya prakriyena. This relative I, the incidental change which is taking the relative I, and the existence of it is also negated. How? Avasthatraya prakriya. As a waker, I am the illuminer of the waker. I am the illuminer of the dreamer. I am the illuminer of the sleeper. Therefore, that it is consciousness. And while this I thought experiences time, it is experienced in the form of a thought, and the thought is illumined by that consciousness. That consciousness is ever present. And what is ever present is free from time. I am timeless. This is the teaching of Bhagavan. But Arjuna didn't understand it. That's why we can have Gita for the 18 chapters. Otherwise, Gita would have ended by this 12th verse. And we got a Gita which runs into 18 chapters because Arjuna didn't get it. And all the way he is asking questions. We will be seeing that. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi Hariki Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hariki Om.